Welcome to a VSA Capital video blog, and delighted to have Thomas Abraham Jones, the CEO of Pulsar Helium with us today. Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Andrew, doing very well, thank you. It's a nice Friday, and all is well.
Yeah, good. Well, why don't we just start off with what I call my where, when, and what question, which is just in sort of 60 seconds, give us a quick snapshot. What is Pulsar Helium all about?
Okay, it's all in the name. So helium is the business, and what we look at is primary occurrences of helium. Primary being where it's the primary economic driver, whereas most of the world's helium production at the moment is a byproduct of hydrocarbons. And so this is a new industry, and we like to think at Pulsar that we're right there at the head of it. And we have primary helium assets in Minnesota and in Greenland. Both of which we've made good discoveries, and Minnesota being more advanced, and we're looking to move that one forward and get to realize its production potential as quickly as possible. Listed in Canada, the UK on AIM, and trade in the USA on the OTC.
So let's just take Minnesota first, because that's actually quite important, isn't it, for a couple of reasons, really. Firstly, with the way the world's going at the moment, America is a big consumer of helium, and you're right there. But also having local supply is quite important, because you get seepage with helium, don't you?
It is. So it's notoriously difficult to transport long distances. So it's the second smallest atom out there. Doesn't like to go too far, and really it's distributed worldwide in containers. And it doesn't really like to be in those containers for, say, roughly more than 30 days. After that period of time, you start to get leakage. So really, with shipping it from the other side of the world, you could anticipate there'll be some losses there. So it's having something domestically, definitely. And it's another benefit, actually, of primary helium, is that the reservoir itself is the storage facility, whereas being a byproduct from natural gas, problem is you got to use it, otherwise it all disappears.
Yeah. And look, your helium actually isn't just any old helium either, isn't it? It's very high grade helium, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So we when we drilled there last year at Topaz Project, Minnesota, we got up to 14.5% helium. So to get to double digits is quite something. There's not many that have achieved that.
And look, just before people get a little bit concerned, obviously you're drilling at the moment, Jetstream 1 and 2, and flow testing. But this is actually, you make a point there that your asset sits in the ground and is valuable. You're not about to expend huge amounts of money trying to make a massive helium plant and everything. You've outsourced all of that, haven't you? So, you're quite a low cost operation as well, aren't you?
Yeah, look, it is. So we've just completed drilling, so the flow testing's coming up. We've got some cleanup to do with the wells, and then we can do the flow testing. But then, to have... It's really the scale of it. So helium is very valuable, but the volume is considerably less than, say, natural gas. We're not looking at oceans of it. So therefore, everything is reduced in size. The complexity around processing as well is far less. So to have a helium plant there, you could have anything from, say, between 10 million US to 50 million US, depending on the size of it and the bells and whistles added to it. But we've signed an agreement with Chart Industries, a US company that designs and fabricates and installs these plants. So, we're certainly looking at it in a production scenario to be an owner-operator of a helium facility.
But that actually is quite important, because one or two other helium operators have actually gone wrong in their process plant by designing it themselves and running into problems. You're using tried and tested stuff with an outsource. It does remove a huge amount of risk and cost.
Yeah, look, we've gone with the gold standard, and really, this is their business. They really have the top available tech, so not really compromising or going for potentially cheaper solutions out there. So really, with this, it's a case of not going for anything fancy. Make sure it works. We're looking at two products, which is helium and CO2 production, as well, and certainly with Chart, they've also got one of the major fabrication facilities down the road in Minnesota too, and keep it in the US. So it's as good as you can get.
And in terms of where you are from exploration to production, I think you can go on your website. You've got a really nice sort of roadmap to success. and you're roughly sort of halfway through it, I think. Would you want to just talk us through that, what you've done and what you've got to come and what we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, look, it's the same as say with hard rock and to gas and oil to a degree, but really the major difference with helium is that, say, if we compare it to minerals, is that the number of holes in the ground that are required to get it to a stage where you could realize production is significantly less. If we're looking at a gold deposit, you need hundreds of drill holes put in there. For helium, it's less. Once again, it comes down to the volumes and the grade, of which certainly with the grade we're blessed with. So the amount of gas that would need to be processed because of that high concentration is less. That has very positive benefits for two things. One is operational cost. So you're treating less gas to get the end product. The other thing is the overall gas in place needed to be found to justify going into production is less as well. So we are about halfway through the process. So we've drilled, we've identified, we have a contingent resource, and really the objective then is to get it up to reserve status. And to get reserves, what you need to prove is that obviously you have enough to justify production, but also to show the production plan. So from processing and distribution. And considering that with helium, you're not talking about pipelines or any significant infrastructure, it has the potential to be quite a lot quicker compared to other commodities.
And look, I think it's also important to note you've been around the helium space for some time. But you've put together a pretty good team as well of people who have been around in this sort of space as well. I mean, do you want to just talk through perhaps one or two of the characters on your team, because they're well known, they've got a good track record.
Yeah, certainly very proud of our team, I must admit. So joining me on the board, we've got Neil Herbert. He's our chairman. So he's been around for some time, and he's always taken an interest in the more bespoke commodities, and he's been very successful. And so he and I started to work together in the helium space prior to Pulsar. And that's really because he identified this as a niche commodity to be in. It was really at the very beginning, about 10 years ago, when helium really started to accelerate in value because of its scarcity. So he and I have been working together for that period of time, and he's a wonderful history there as well, and great success. Also on the board, we have Jon Ferrier. He used to be the CEO of Gulf Keystone Petroleum, so production of oil in Iraq as well. So brings that production experience. Then our technical team, we have Brad Cage as our VP of Engineering, newly appointed. So congratulations, Brad. So he's out of Oklahoma, and he's been doing decades of work in the industry. Operations manager Michael Sturdy, who also comes from Oklahoma originally as well. So bringing that operational experience with wells, internationally. So he's seen everything that can happen at the well site. And then our chief geologist as well, Nick Schofield. He brings that. For us, our reservoir is slightly different to others. And so with that, it's, I won't bore you with the geology of it, but it's a crystalline, it's a hard rock reservoir. And Nick is one of very few world experts on this type of geology. So, I've got, really strong team backing me up.
And now you did touch on the fact that you're listed on AIM in the UK, you're on the TSXV in Canada, you're on the OTC in America. You're not quite on the ASX yet, even though you've got a very good non-exec who's from Australia, a good friend of mine. But are you one day going to go, you know what, we're an American company, let's just focus on that? Because you're too small for America, so that's why it's only, why you've got to be on the others. But are you going to settle on one exchange, or do you carry on with this sort of triple exchange, which can be beneficial, but can also create some issues?
Yeah, look, it's working for us, I must admit. So when we first launched the company, we listed in Canada, so on the TSXV, and that was a decision that was made because of geography, where the assets are. The other thing is that there are a number of comparables there. There were other helium companies, other exchanges, sort of less than two. So it was good for investors to be able to see how we stack up compared to others. Myself and a lot of my colleagues, we hail from the UK, so there was certainly demand and interest there, and that prompted us to do the dual listing. And then the US on the OTC, naturally, of course, with there, and we see really good trading volumes on the OTC as well. So, look, it's giving everybody the opportunity in what is a new industry to be able to participate. There is no established market for, industrial gas exploration companies and development companies. So therefore, it does make sense to be able to allow many to participate. But for us, like with our team, and I think as you probably picked up on, we have quite a few American personnel, and we're certainly looking to increase that because this gets to, we fulfill its potential, and with any luck, get to production. Then I think that the natural home for the asset is the USA. But as you rightly allude to, is that the US, the company needs to get to that point of production before we start to consider a main board listing in the USA. So, in a success scenario, that's certainly something that we're looking at and contemplating. But at this moment in time, we've got enough to keep us busy with the exchanges that we're currently on.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's no rush. I mean, that's perhaps a little bit of an intro, talking of eventually being American, talking about Greenland a bit. I'm not sure they are eventually going to be American, but I think it's Tunu, your project there. It's always nice to have a second project, but explain your logic there a little bit, and why Greenland, perhaps.
Here it is behind me. So good old Greenland. I've worked in Greenland personally since 2008, and so I know it very well. And it was really that when helium, been this now for a decade, and then it's like, well, hang on, the geology in Greenland is really has got the right ingredients for hosting helium. And so had a look, and lo and behold, we found a primary helium occurrence where we thought that it may well be. And so really it was a project that was generated in-house, so there's no acquisition costs or anything. And considering how rare primary helium occurrences are, there's only a certain few geographic locations that you can find them. It makes complete sense. And particularly for Europe, it is a net importer of helium. And so to give Europe, something brand new on the map that could potentially go some way towards domestic supply, for all these reasons, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it may be worth I think in the UK, most people will know that helium is not, as you often say, just about party balloons. It's about a whole range of industries. And obviously, as you said earlier on, most of it comes as a byproduct of gas production, so places like Qatar. So actually, do you think, end up seeing strategic players who actually need the helium be coming in and either taking a stake in you or taking you over? I mean, it's interesting. It's not, helium is one of those things. It's not oil and gas. It's not mining. You don't have the same natural sort of, off takes you might get from mining sort of thing. But will you end up in that sort of a place, do you think, or some structure like that?
Yeah, look, I think the potential's there. I mean, if you look at it like, let's look at lithium, right? Here's a good example. So lithium back in the day, the only thing I could think of was bicycle grease. And now all of a sudden there it is one of the key battery commodities out there, whereas beforehand nobody wanted a lithium project. And I guess you could see that helium is somewhat the same. So we all initially think of, party balloons, and it's not a necessity, it's a nicety, and so on. But what's happened is, just like lithium, is that for helium, all of a sudden, with increased technology, the digital age, semiconductors, space launch, all these things, helium plays a very important role, and it's very unique. It's not something that you can replace either. It's something that we can have close to 0 degrees Kelvin, and it's still a liquid. It's not flammable. So what do you want to keep really cold, but you don't want it to freeze, and you don't want it to be combustible either? Helium. And there's not much of it. And so high-tech applications like cooling agents for data centers, space launch with pressure systems to maintain fuel pressure in the tanks, semiconductor fabrication, to be able to, and fiber optics, to be able to quench the material so that you don't get bubbles trapped in the wafers and the conductors and so on. All these things, it's only growing. So a long way of answering your question, but it's something which is new. It's really about a decade old. Whilst it's not the largest component of any of these items, it is a crucial component. And so we can see that USA production of helium is in decline, doesn't want to be reliant on foreign resources coming in. We know it's hard to transport, geopolitical safety and so on. Look, I think it has great potential to attract someone that and break the existing model which is not terribly flexible, and for the customer is highly undesirable. So I think for someone to take the brave step of disrupting the supply, it's a real opportunity.
Yeah, and some of these are huge organizations, which, frankly, it would be small change to them in a way, but something they absolutely have to have. Just finally, perhaps, you're flow testing Jetstream 1 and Jetstream 2. What does the news look like, sort of the news flow for the rest of 2025?
Yeah, so what we're doing at the moment is we're doing a cleanup of the wells, so basically removing some drill fines, dust for lack of a better word, clean that out. Then the flow testing, and then that's one of the key components. So for helium, key components are, is the gas there? What's the grade of the gas? How quickly does it come out? And how much of it is there? And so really the flow testing is the last bit that we need to do to be able to get to the next step, which is then a resource update. And then with our, with Chart Industries, we've signed that agreement to look at production scenarios. We then start to look at the economics, and we'll be putting that out in the public domain for the first time. And then really after that, it'll be, okay, red light, green light. If it's green light, then we go forward and we start to say, okay, this is what production looks like, and get on that path. If we're not quite at that stage, then how much more work needs to be done? Do we need to drill additional wells? Yes or no? So really for us is that we've certainly as a company, we've only been listed now for a couple of years. We've worked pretty, I guess, rapidly to get to this point and develop it. And we have no real intention of slowing down. So thick and fast is how I'd like to see it, Andrew.
Tom, that's a great sort of short summary of the business, I think. And this is to whet people's appetite. Obviously, if people want to have more information about Pulsar Helium, then do contact us or get in contact with Tom directly. But thank you, Tom, for coming on. It's a very exciting story, I've got to say. I'm going to watch with fascination how it all pans out.
I'm glad you think so too. Always good to see you, mate.